Welcome to the FNRad Snowboarding Podcast. I'm Eric Charlson.
Wow, this is a great way to climb mountains and come down, you know.
For our reception, our Vulcan buddies brought acid.
I was dropping in and snaking people and causing shit.
I remember calling on the radio and I'm like, Brushy, where are you? You know,
Greg would do the tricks. He was kind of like the Tony Hawk of snowboarding.
I mean, people just really gravitated to the backcountry.
I liked Craig, but he didn't really care for me too much because I was a little shithead.
Tim Windell is the namesake for Windell's Camp at Mount Hood, which has been operating for almost 30 years. Last season, High Cascade and Windell's Camp merged, and it was decided that Windell's would now be ski only. This interview took place months before the merger. I sat with Tim Windell on the side of an enormous skate park at the camp's headquarters.
You know, my first board, I ran into Rob Morrow. I was skiing up at Mount Hood. It was 81 or 82. And I ran into Rob Morrow, who was on a board. And I don't even know what he was on. I imagine it was a Sims. I don't know. And so I asked him if we could go trace it out. He said, yeah, we went and traced it out. And then I went back to wood shop in Newport, Oregon, and started building a board and didn't really finish it until I got into college up in Colorado. And so the first board I had was one that was made by me personally, which didn't really work that well, but it worked good enough. I mean, the way I saw it is like, wow, this is a great way to go climb mountains and come down, you know, in the wintertime, because that's what we used to do, is climb a lot. You know, so we didn't really have bindings back then. It was bungee cords and rope setups, you know. And then there was this guy, Byron, I think it was, in Colorado. He owned a ski area, a ski area there, up on top of one of the passes. I'm trying to think of the name of it. I want to say it's Burton Pass. And it was one of the only ski areas, or few ski areas that was open in Colorado at the time. And he made boards too, and so I got one of his, which I was really excited about. And then it's funny, from there, I rode his quite a bit. And again, it just needed a whole bunch more stuff, you know. It was one of those things you just constantly added to it. And like fake edges and all kinds of stuff. And then there was boards starting to come up for sale in Colorado. You know, there wasn't much going on. Again, I think there was only one ski area, which was Burton Pass, that was open, you know. And then there was Hesperus Ski Station in Durango, Colorado, that would allow it, but it's like a pommel lift. And then Purgatory later started allowing it, you know. But I got a board in McGuckin's Hardware in Boulder, Colorado. I think I paid like, you know, $499 back in 84, 85. And that was a board with no edges, you know, just had skags, and 1500 FE, I want to say, is what it was. Yeah, the bindings were, well, then there were fast buckles. They're just, nice. I still have it to this day, actually.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and yeah, just like like what you use on backpacks now, you know.
Like a clip.
Yeah, clip. There was no high backs or anything else. No. Yeah.
There are very few people who can say they were snowboarding in 1981. Tim's been into it almost since the beginning.
To a sense, since the beginning. I mean, Tom and Jake were in it a lot earlier than I was. Yeah, it was since the beginning of like the industrial segment of it, when it started getting into production. The first time I got on one, I was just like, this is it. This is it. When I saw Rob Morrow riding one, I was just like, that's insane. I want to do that. It was everything I could do to chase that guy down.
What stays the same in snowboarding and what changes?
I guess, you know, the things that I see that kind of remain the same is my passion's still in it. I love it. You know, it's what I live, eat, sleep, and drink, you know. I love to do it. I love to create and make things happen out of nothing. And I think that's a big part of snowboarding that has been something for me anyway. What has changed, you know, is I think it's gone more towards people looking at spreadsheets and following the bottom line, which is sad to see, but somewhat reality when you're talking millions of dollars in the businesses. What I've seen is, you know, a lot of things that we've cherished, like the seasonal videos coming out, and the excitement around those things still occurs, but lesser. And I think a lot of that's because of the balance sheets that people are following now.
Have the campers stayed the same?
Yeah, I think there's still people getting on boards and still being really excited about it and being hooked about it. You know, I think the technology's coming around where it's changed quite a bit, you know, and it's made things a lot easier to not only ride a snowboard, but ride it better, you know. I think there's a lot of programs out there that allow people to get on it their first time and really advance quickly.
Growing up on skis, Tim found the transition to snowboarding pretty easy.
Just hopped on one and it was okay. I was like, all right, now I'm reading the snow differently. And I think skiing and snowboarding kind of help each other. Skiing makes you a better snowboarder because you're reading the slope differently, and snowboarding makes you ski it more like a snowboarder.
Tim's been riding at Timberline on Mount Hood since there were only a couple other snowboarders riding there, which seems unfathomable today. I wondered if even such accepting resorts as Timberline had any trouble accepting the early wave of snowboarders.
It was tough for the people that work there to accept snowboarding, because it was taking off so much. In the 80s and 90s, early 90s, skiers hated snowboarders. And then in mid-2000s, snowboarders started hating skiers. Yeah. It's interesting to see that dynamic. It's a little different because back in the 80s and 90s, as I was a good snowboarder and a great skier, there was quite a few times where I went to ski resorts to open up ski resorts, and the ski patrol that night when you're having beers with them and talking about it, somebody gets pissed off and grabs your neck and throws you up against the wall because they're pissed. And that happened a few times, not from mouthing off to them either, just they were pissed that things were changing. Yeah. And I think that had changed a little bit when the snowboarders hated on the skiers. It was probably less violent, so to speak.
Yeah, right. How were the ski camps pre-snowboarding?
It was predominantly ski racing, and then there was bumps, Canada was bumps, and Timberline was predominantly ski racing. The unfortunate side of probably the Olympics and the Olympic Committee is like with bump skiing is, they put rules and regulations not to allow it to really expand and grow. And without that expansion and growth element, I feel like it just kind of stagnates the whole segment of that discipline. It's like, they're disqualifying people for doing a quad, it's like they don't have it in the rule book, so they disqualified Schlopey, who did a perfect quad and stuck it, the first time ever in a competition. I hope that never happens with snowboarding. I would hope that snowboarding evolves once it taps out on the cork thing, as it moves hopefully more back into style. But who knows? Right. It's my hope that it just keeps evolving and changing, for the betterment, and just taking in consideration that the more we're doing triple corks and stuff like that, the more it turns off kids. Yeah, it's cool to watch, but if that's predominantly what kids are seeing on TV, that's going to go, oh yeah, that looks cool, I'm not going to do that. Right. I can't do that. I'm never going to want to do that.
At the time I recorded with Tim, the snowboard industry was dealing with a decline in overall sales. The general feeling was that growth had slowed and kids were maybe turning back to skiing. At that time, Windell's camp catered to snowboarders and skiers, so Tim wasn't panicking like many of the other snowboard-only companies.
We haven't seen a decline. We saw, based on the economy is what we equated it to. We saw a decline, 2 years ago in camper numbers and stuff like that. We battle the ebb and flows of Mother Nature and the perception of whether we have snow or not. So we haven't seen that yet. I hope we don't see it, but, if it comes, I think we're prepared for it.
You would also be an expert on environmental snow patterns, just having a 30-year memory of what's going on here. Like, you've seen the ebbs and flows of good snow years, bad snow years. Is there a trend towards less snow year after year? 2005,
we had the third worst, snow pack in recorded history out here. And we made it through, mid-August that year. So we were able to ride the whole time. This year, it's perceived we had low snowpack again. It's 10, 11 years later. And the time before that was 96. So, there's kind of it seems like there could be somewhat of a trend, is how you equate that. That year we started off with banner snow year. And then we just had the warm rains of the El Nino, where it just washed everything away and flooded out Portland and wiped out a ton of houses up here. We predominantly feed off of El Nino and La Nina. This was an El Nino year where warmer rains that we get, and those things push down to the south, far south, and go far north, far north, which happened this year, next year it looks like we're going to have another La Nina, which is the warm ocean moves up from South America and comes up here. So you see all kinds of dead sea life on the beaches out here, even to this day.
Yeah, I saw that this weekend.
Yeah. But they come up, and it brings the warmer fish up this way, and then that warm water slowly starts moving down south again, and that's when it starts dumping. But yeah, it's stuck up here through like November is what it looks like, and that's what NOAA says. So I follow what NOAA has to say usually. Back in the day, it was a crapshoot. It's like you got a guy doing the weather that doesn't even have a college degree.
No idea.
It's gonna rain, snow, sleet today.
The vibe at Windell's has always been the best.
Yeah, thanks.
When we go up and are guests of the camp, people are just having such a good time.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, that's what we kind of pride ourselves on. You know,
Yeah.
it's like if you're not having fun, you're not really progressing.
And you must see some of the guys that come through here that are household names.
Oh,
who are
absolutely.
Training all year at your camp
Yeah.
and training all summer.
Yeah, I mean, we had quite a few people that had been through our programs and that were competing in the Olympics from all over the world, which is good to see. I mean, don't get me wrong about what I said about the Olympics or where sports go to die. Yeah, you know, if there's one thing that's changed in snowboarding, it's like the lack of core retailers, you know, that shrinkage there, that's scary. I hope it doesn't hurt the sport as a whole, because I think you lose a lot of the core element and aspect in the one-on-one touch, feel, and talk about, you know.
In the early 90s, Sims dominated the back covers of Transworld and Snowboarder magazines and featured Tim Windell in several of their ads. I wondered if there had ever been a Tim Windell pro model in the works.
I was riding a Kidwell, yeah. Tom's deal was there was never really a board in play. Once Brad Stewart left, when Brad was there, I think there probably would have been a board in play, but it really wasn't my deal. Was just like, let's make the best board we can, and let's go after it. You know, Craig was moving over to Burton, and you know, he was getting Jake's ear. He had Jake's ear, and Jake was working pretty diligently on producing stuff. And I think at that point in time, in my opinion, Sims was dominating the freestyle aspect of it. It was like, let's just make the best board possible, and that was pretty much my goal and focus. I didn't really care at the time about having my name on a board. All I cared about is like, hey, I enjoyed what I did, you know. I enjoyed riding. I mean, we came from a poor family, you know, we lived on the dirt floor. So it was like, for me, it's just being able to ride was fucking awesome. And that's all I cared about.
So Tom involved you guys in the design of the boards?
Yeah.
Came down with like, here are the 3 boards we're going to put out this year. Terry, which one do you want to put your name on? Or was it like, guys, what do we need to do to make these boards awesome?
Hey, Tom was open in the sense, Tom was good at, you know, directing in the sense, he was open to new ideas and concepts. And a lot of those ideas and concepts came from him and Dave Weaver and his skateboard roots and stuff. So he was pretty tied into that stuff, you know. And I think he started getting a little clouded when Sims started expanding over in Europe, and it was more of the racing aspect. Because, you know, it was a clear vision that, like, you know, there was 2 dominant brands back then, and a few other really good brands out there that were making leaps and bounds and changing things in a good, positive way for the industries, and that's what I really respected out of Tom. I was loyal to Sims. We got dumped because Sims went out of business, you know, and Tom financed Sean Palmer, and that was it, and did a Palmer model, and that's all he sold in '92. So I was forced to go elsewhere.
After Sims, Tim went to Checker Pig, a European team that made snowboards and early versions of mountain bikes.
Sims was being made there before, and I used to go out there and visit, you know, and we'd work on stuff over there as far as race boards and the freestyle boards, and add extra stuff in the boards because of the amount of pressure we're putting in things, and trying to figure out what was working and what wasn't working. And so it was really exciting at first, you know, and then it was just dealing with that, being an American and dealing with the European mentality was really tough. It's good times.
Yeah.
I mean, I cherish my moments. I'm thankful to snowboarding. It's been my life, you know.
It's rad.
Been good.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing the interview.
Yeah, thank you. Good seeing you.
Yeah, good to see you.
FNRad shoutouts to Tim Windell for recording with us. I'd give you his camp's website, windellscamp.com, but it's only for skiers now, so it's kind of weird that it's gone that way. You're going to hear more from Tim Windell in our Craig Kelly episode for sure. Be sure to join us next week for another episode of the FNRad Snowboarding Podcast, brought to you by BR Productions.